What is going on, Tender Crew? My name is Billy the Squid, and today I want to go back and look at the first Elden Ring video that I made, and it has quickly become one of my most infamous videos on the channel. Y'all watched it. Y'all let me know what you think, and according to this like to dislike ratio, you had some things to say. But I want to get into it. I want to kind of go back and talk about this video, because this video was not something I expected to blow up in any kind of way. I expected it to get my usual number of views just simply because this was a live segment from one of my streams that I thought was interesting and kind of wanted to put it out there to a wider audience. And the thought process behind it, while I do agree with some of the things that I was saying, was not entirely thought out. And through your all's comments, because the comments were actually surprisingly tame and helpful compared to a lot of YouTube comment sections that I've seen with a like to dislike ratio like that, I've kind of reevaluated some of my thoughts, and I kind of want to get into that through this video. And the best way to do that is to go through y'all's comments and read them and then kind of respond to them and see where my thought processes have shifted. But first and foremost, and it seems to be the biggest hang up that people had with that video, was my comparison to Bluepoint's Demon's Souls remake in the graphics department. I did start the video out saying that I wished that the graphic polish was up to that par. It was a fleeting wish. It really didn't have any weight to it, and I could have removed that section from the video, and honestly, I probably should have, and the videos would have had the same message, or at least it would have had the same message that I was intending it to make. Seems like a lot of people got hung up on the Demon's Souls comparison. I kind of want to go over a few of those just to clarify. The video was not intended to be about the graphics. It was intended to be about the engine itself. But yeah, let's see what you guys had to say about my graphics conversation. The problem is Bluepoint made a game for the one console, the PS5, so they had a lot more focus. Also, they didn't have to worry about it not working on other systems. Very true, very true. You can't seriously compare a very linear game like Demon's Souls getting the overhaul in graphics for the new generation of consoles with an open-world game that has been in development for the last 4 years. Elden Ring is to come out on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X. Do you honestly believe that they will improve the graphics and make it a PS5 only? No, never said that they would. I understand how long this game's been in development, and it has been in development with the current generation PS4 and Xbox One in mind since that get-go, much like what Cyberpunk was. And it seems like they're going the appropriate route with the graphics and with how their engine works, where they want it to be able to work on those consoles first and foremost. It seems like they're building it for there and then up-resing it for the next generation of consoles, instead of the other way around, where they build it with those next generations and PC in mind, and then try to dumb it down and the game doesn't work properly. I think this is the proper way to do it. I think they are doing a good job with that. And that's honestly where my idea on the graphics kind of ends. I'm okay with it being a lower fidelity game because at the end of the day, FromSoftware does not really focus on that. A lot of you all mentioned that they don't focus on that kind of aspect, and it's very true. They want their game to function as best as it can, and they have their own particular art style. That's not a bad thing. So wishing for the Bluepoint treatment or a game that looks equivalent to the Bluepoint treatment is a wish, but it is not a necessity, and it's a little funny that everybody got hung up on that, but I do think it's just because it was at the beginning of the video and it kind of set the whole course of the rest of the video off on a bad tone. The Demon's Souls remake was a PS5 exclusive. It couldn't be done on the PS4, so I don't get what this guy expects. Graphics do not make a game. You're right, you're right. And I honestly, whenever I made that fleeting comment, didn't take into consideration the next gen to current gen ratio, with Demon's Souls remake being for the next gen and Elden Ring still needing to be viable on PS4 and Xbox One. It wasn't a thought that I considered, so I do take that back. But Elden Ring graphics look good from what I heard of it and from the trailers. They do look good, and I say they are probably on par with Sekira's graphics, which is where I expect the entire game to be on the FromSoftware graphics department. It will probably be a little bit better. I don't know how many assets they're going to be reusing, but if it looks Sekiro forward, I'm 100% okay with that. Even if it took a little bit of a back step and just looked like open world Dark Souls 3 as far as the graphics go, I'd be okay with that too. Again, it needs to work on the PS4 and Xbox One. That is the biggest priority over graphic fidelity. Demon Souls Remake is for PS5, Elden Ring is for PS4, you dipshit dude. Hey, 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 hey. Watch the language, we can be adults here. I was wrong, you are correct. Tisk tisk on the language. Let Bluepoint remaster Elden Ring once it's done. No, 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 no. I do believe that there is a very divided sect of the Souls community that very much dislikes what Bluepoint did with the Demon Souls remake. I personally like the art style. I think it is a fun game. I think the game looks really, really nice. But there is a very resounding portion of the community that thinks that they defeated the purpose. They completely changed the art style in a way where the game, as far as its tone and stuff goes, is completely unrecognizable. And that is valid. They did make sweeping shifts to the art style of that game. And it's to be expected that people aren't going to enjoy what Bluepoint did. And at the end of the day, I think more people just want FromSoftware exclusive input onto their things. Remakes and remasters and stuff, while nice and can improve somebody's experience later down the road, I don't believe that you should be wishing for one studio to graphically overhaul another studio's work to be able to enjoy it. Worried about graphics while playing Dark Souls 2? How ironic. Yes, Dark Souls 2 is great, and I enjoyed that mod very, very much. Augur of Darkness, by the way. Highly recommend it. Elden Ring could go full potato, and it wouldn't bother me unless the other aspects that FromSoftware are masters at end up disappointing. Graphics mean nothing. You are 100% correct, and like I've been stating in this video so far, me including that was probably a faux pas. It needs to run on PS4 and Xbox One before anything else. Demon Souls Remake is an exception because Sony money, plus FromSoftware's finished game, plus Bluepoint expertise, plus the masterminds at SIE PlayStation Japan Studios are the reason that game was able to be made in such a short period of time to such a high degree of polish. You can't honestly compare the two with how vastly different each project's resources were. You're right. I didn't even consider the resource management and stuff. Sony money, FromSoftware already laying the groundwork, Bluepoint being a great studio, in my opinion, and the masterminds at SIE PlayStation Studios Japan. I don't know a lot about them, but I will take your word for it. And the last comment we will bring up about graphics is Bluepoint is so detailed, you mean how it's oversaturated and colorized to the point where the original art style is gone? P.S. Using the same engine being a concern could have been a valid point you're making had you brought up how bad the performance has been on PC, PS4, especially with Sekiro. But this sounds more like a rant about how using the same engine is bad without really making any points as to why that is. Dark Souls 1, 3, and Sekiro are different games. It doesn't matter what engine they're on. An engine is retired once the devs feel there is nothing more to do with it. So far, From's done fine, and the engine's done fine except its performance. You're right. I did not make enough points to why I feel like I had concerns about the engine that Elden Ring was going to be built on. It is an old engine. That still stands very handedly. Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, Sekiro, now Elden Ring. It is an aging engine that, while it is still holding up as far as the gameplay facets go, what you said right there was my primary concerns, and I did not express them very well in the live stream that I was asked the question. The performance issues are a big issue. I had some very serious frame issues, and there's a reason why the frame rate is permanently locked in these kinds of games. But a secondary point that I also wanted to make about the engine is I feel like they have pushed the limits of what they can originally do with this engine. A bigger concern of mine was a heavy use of the reused assets from Dark Souls 3, Sekiro, stuff along those lines. While that's not necessarily a bad thing because those assets are phenomenal, and reusing assets from one game to another is very commonplace, I don't want people getting burnt out on too much of the same, I guess would be my biggest concern. I don't personally have a problem with it because I think the game's still going to be a lot of fun. And if it's a big culmination of all of those games into one thing, it's going to be amazing because all of those games are phenomenal. But I am more concerned about the community itself and new people coming into the community, seeing how there's not been a significant amount of variation. I think people are expecting more since it is open world, since it is a new IP. I think there's a big expectation for it to be very different from the other games, and I don't know 100% until we get gameplay whether that is going to be the case. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of what that video was originally supposed to be about before graphics got brought into it and kind of took over the conversation. Starting off with this comment, piss. Indeed. Moving on. I'd say that my concerns are mostly to do with how the open world stuff they're implementing, like not just one open world, but 6 very large areas you travel between. And they have to be very large considering they have multiple dungeons and the legacy dungeons. One that probably as big or a little bigger than a normal Dark Souls level, which could mean a legacy dungeon as big as the entirety of the Farron level, which starts at Road of Sacrifice and ends at the Catacombs, with all of that content in between. This comment is very detailed, and I'm not going to spend the time reading all of this, but as I'm talking about it, go through and read through this comment. It is very well worded, very well thought about. Like doing the last Archstone of Demon Souls before going to fight False King Alant, there are supposed to be enough encounters to the point FromSoftware said that even while out exploring, you would constantly get into combat experiences or something close to that. This comment's very detailed and very intricate and very well thought out, so I'm going to leave it up while I'm talking about it. That is a concern that I didn't cover in that video, but it is a concern that I found very interesting. It brought me back to the first time I played through Final Fantasy 15. Final Fantasy 15 had a very open world stick with it where it kind of locked you into sections of the open world, but it was expanding out as you would go through the story. But there's a ton of side content, a ton of open world content that I did my very first time playing through that game get myself so over leveled to the point that once I started going back to story content, it was irrelevant. It was just a hack and slash at that point. There was no real strategy or anything. And that could be a very big concern. That is always a concern with open world games of this style. And I don't think FromSoftware is immune to having this critique be made. They need to have their pacing set up in a way that it doesn't make the dungeon content or storyline based content irrelevant, even if you decide to go out and do a lot of open world content. You aren't the only ones that has these concerns. Also, Invasion's PvP are the reason I still play Dark Souls 3. I really feel like FromSoftware has moved to implementing far more hand-holding this time around, but obviously we won't know how this plays out until we actually play the game for ourselves. Very much the case. There's a lot of comments saying that I just need to wait until the game comes out before making these kinds of decisions. I did a criticism video on the Invasion and PvP system coming out in Elden Ring, and again, that was a resounding thing where just wait for the game to come out before you start making these decisions. The issue is the game is still in development, and the more the community talks about the game, if you don't think the developers are actively looking at their community as these developments are being made, then you're ignorant to the fact that they want the game to succeed with the community. We need to talk about these things. Whether you like talking about them or not, or just want to wait until the game comes out, that's your decision to make. But these are useful conversations to have. I'm not dogging on the game just for the sake of dogging on it and getting hate clicks. I'm dogging on the game in any aspect if I do see a genuine need for criticism, because I want the game to succeed. I want the game to be the best it can be. I'm not hating on a game because I just simply hate it and want it to fail. It's on the contrary. I want it to be the best game it can be. And by bringing these things up and getting community talking about these kinds of things, that is where my heart lies, because I want it to be the best for everybody involved. I just hope they add Dark Souls 2 ideas. Dark Souls 2 is my personal favorite. Mine as well. We know they're getting the Twin Blades back. Honestly, the only thing they really need to add from Dark Souls 2 to make me a big happy boy would be power stancing. Being able to power stance 2 weapons or 2 shields or whatnot. That would make me very, very happy. I wouldn't be surprised if they stick with the Dark Souls 3 method of having weapons pre-built with dual wielding in mind, but I would like that added option to be able to power stance. I think that would be really, really nice. My biggest fear is that Elden Ring becomes a Ubisoft generic open world game. I wouldn't be too concerned about that. My biggest concern as far as the open world goes is what most open world games have an issue with, and that's making it so that it's a full lively world without also putting so much in it that you become over-leveled for the dungeons or story content. It's a balancing act. You just need to make sure that there's enough going on for the world to feel alive and lived in without it making it so that it's almost overwhelming and you can easily spend too much time doing that stuff, and then by the time you get to where you're going, you're over-leveled for the cause. One thing I do think FromSoftware has uniquely in their favor with this is they have one, or at least they tend to have one currency for everything that you do, whether it be purchasing things, upgrading things, leveling up. There is a singular currency in most of the games for that style play. So if they have enough aspects for you to be branching those currencies into a bunch of different directions, it can stretch that a little bit wider so that over leveling wouldn't be as big of a concern. Bruh, regardless to everything you just said right now, you and everybody else will enjoy the game no matter what. No matter what is not true, but I will be enjoying the game and giving it a solid try, and I don't have any idea that FromSoftware is going to fail in putting out a fun title. I just want it to be as best as it can be. That's, end of the day, the whole reason I made the video. Not to hate on it, I want to enjoy it, and I just want it to be as enjoyable as it possibly can be. I want it to reach max potential. Those dislikes, the Elden Ring community being mature as always. Hey, don't hate on them too much. It's all very much founded, especially with my initial arguments into the game. I get where they were coming from. I get where the dislike ratio comes from. It was not a very well-made video. I didn't expect it to pop off like it did. So, it's acceptable. I accept all the dislikes, Elden Ring community. Yours truly, Billy the Skwid. I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion or whatever, but a slightly visually improved combination of all the Souls games is totally fine with me. I trust From, and they seem to be truly putting all of their resources together into this game, and at the same time making it a much larger scale. That's really all I need, and I couldn't be more pumped. As long as it's significantly graphically better than like Dark Souls 3 or Bloodborne, I'm chilling. And even thought Sekiro was really pretty at times. Sekiro is gorgeous, and I have a feeling this game's going to be probably on Sekiro level beauty. With the size of the game, I understand that they're not going to be able to pump high-res textures onto every single thing. There's going to be some low-res assets that if you zoom in on them, they're going to look bad. But I have a feeling it's going to be Sekiro level of pretty. I have no doubts about that. And I'm 100% with you. And that was one of the closing statements that I made in the original video was, if this culminates everything that they've learned from this previous console generation into one solid game, it's going to be the perfect swan song. 100%, and it will lead us beautifully into the next generation of consoles. Bro, this game has been in development for more than 5 years. Game development circles don't allow you to make extreme changes to their systems, plus it's an open world game that does limit the graphical complexity. However, I am completely sure, this is going to be the last game on that engine, mainly because we are in the middle of a new console generation. 100%. This comment was a big eye-opener to me because, again, I didn't originally think about the PS4 and Xbox One versions in mind. So them needing to have this work on those consoles, since it has been working since the middle of that console generation, makes a lot of sense. I want it to be the good swan song for this engine. I'm excited to see what the future holds. My biggest concern is that the engine isn't originally made with open world in mind. The engine that FromSoftware uses is very much set to like static dungeons. Maybe it's versatile enough to expand out to an open world. We will have to wait and see. That's something that, while that is a concern, it can also be a good boon if the engine's able to handle it. The performance issues do get me a little bit concerned. I don't know if render distance or anything is a reason for some of the performance issues with like Sekiro or the like, but we will just have to wait and see. It's a scary, scary aspect considering, I know one of the comments on a comment was talking about how Mass Effect Andromeda used a new engine and the game turned out horrible. And while, yes, that game did turn out horrible and it was on a new engine, the engine in question was also made for first-person shooters. It wasn't intended with that style of game in mind. So there's a slight concern that an open-world game isn't going to work on this, but I have a feeling FromSoftware has already done the testing on that to make sure that is going to be viable before they set so much time into working on this. Oh yes, here it is. While Elden Ring could very well flop, I think your criticism lacks understanding. A new engine doesn't make a game. Mass Effect Andromeda used a new engine and it was terrible. People are still using the Unreal Engine to make games and it's old as fuck. FromSoftware is a small company that's been making unique games since the PlayStation 1 era. Bluepoint merely recreated a game that was already designed by FromSoftware. Quite the difference. ZeniMax Media which owns Bethesda, is a company known for its anti-consumer practices. That's why they've sold out over the years. And Kodakawa Corporation, which owns FromSoftware, has been far more hands-off, and it's paid off for FromSoftware. Yes, agreed. But like I was saying about Mass Effect Andromeda, that engine wasn't originally intended with that style of a game in mind. So it's just a slight concern, nothing really to dwell on though. Glad to see people speaking up about this. People in the Souls fan base treat FromSoftware like CD Projekt Red fans treated them before Cyberpunk. My main concern is the sheer reuse of so many Dark Souls assets, even though this is a new game. Even Sekiro had completely new animations with a 3-year development cycle. It seems like this will be Dark Souls 4, and yeah, I'll definitely be disappointed if it feels like that. I wanted a similar change like Sekiro, which was so refreshing. The game will probably sell extremely poorly because of this, in my opinion. I don't see them passing Sekiro records because people will say they've played the game already. People are getting tired of the Souls formula. While there is a section of people that are tired of the Souls formula, I think that is a minority section. I think most people are 100% okay with the Souls formula. That being said, the reuse of assets, and depending on how Soulsy it is, will definitely weigh one way or the other. I do think that people are wanting a refreshing take on this style of game. I know Sekiro was refreshing, and a lot of people really enjoyed Sekiro. The problem with Sekiro is it didn't have the replayability factor because that was never an intended feature. It never had, beyond getting all of the endings, really any replayability in mind, and that is fine because that was a completely different IP. They had a different vision for what they wanted from Sekiro. This is supposed to be the replayability FromSoftware game, so depending on how much they do pull from the prior Dark Souls games and put them into Elden Ring, it could very well sway a few people away from the game, but I still think that's a minority. You didn't even mention the lack of unfiltered gameplay footage for a game that's just 4 months away. We had unfiltered gameplay footage of Dark Souls 3, Sekiro, Bloodborne a year before release. That's coming. The top content creators a month ago got unfiltered gameplay footage, and I'm assuming we will get that 16 minutes of footage here at some point. Who knows when, but I am very, very hopeful that that will be the case. We also have the network test coming soon. I don't know if the delay had anything to do with the network test coming up. It seems like they've been toying with this idea since they announced the delay and the network test on the same day. But I think that will put a lot of people's minds at ease once more people have hands-on with the game, either one way or the other, whether they want to buy it or not. Yeah, I'm disappointed as well because I don't like the Bloodborne Dark Souls 3 engine. Like, I hated Dark Souls 3's style, and it looks just gross. So let's hope Elden Ring can distinctify itself and separate it from Dark Souls 3. I didn't mind most of Dark Souls 3's assets. The biggest issues that I had with Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne for that matter was the enemies just being so much taller and bigger than what your playable character is. It just felt a little weird, but I personally don't have much other complaints between Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3's engine. And they were able to dial that back in with Sekiro with more human-sized enemies, because believe it or not, Sekiro does run on the same engine as Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3. The less Sekiro in Elden Ring, the better. What a terrible one playthrough game. Nonsense with no good aesthetic, just generic Japanese architecture and so many reskinned enemies that it even puts Souls to shame in that regard. While that has some merit to it, there were a lot of reskins in Sekiro. The game was very, very well done as far as the gameplay aspects go. It was a very big branch from the standard FromSoftware formula as far as action games tend to go. I think you're being a little bit too harsh, and I think that there are some aspects that can be pulled from Sekiro, such as the stealth, such as the jumping. I wouldn't mind a grapple hook consumable item, honestly, but I do think that there are some good stuff to come from that. I have a feeling we are going to see some of the prosthetic tool style attacks moved into the weapon art category. I 100% believe that will be the case. It's on the same engine. Why? It's almost 2022. This game has been in development for 5+ years, so the technology is not going to just jump with that. It was originally intended with PS4 and Xbox One in mind in that similar era of gaming. It's just made it so that that console jump is happening when it's going to be released. And with that, we have come to the end of the comment roundup. Thank you all who commented on the videos recently. If you want to see your comments featured in future videos, because I plan to do more of these, don't forget to comment on the videos that you find interesting, that you have an interesting take on. that you want to be displayed with your opinion. But with that being said, Elden Ring has been delayed February of next year. There is a network test coming out, so if you haven't signed up for the network test, do so now for a chance to be able to play that. Much love, Tenna Crew. Bye-bye.